Hello, fellow devs. Today we are returning right back to our uh, barter and trade system. It's day 4 of me working on this now. And I'm sorry, my previous videos were rather silent. You can kind of watch and see how I've set up the basis of this. I've already got my asset folder marked, labeled, ready to go. Everything's nice and organized. And to give kind of a recap, the tutorial pawn is just, I try not to touch this. This is just a placeholder, if you will. We have a trade component. So the tutorial pawn just has basic movement controls, but it also holds the trade component. The trade component is where all of the logic for the system will be. So far, begin play. I'm setting up my master widget, setting up my whole UI system. Event can interact. It works hand in hand with a market. So what my thoughts are is this is the market master. Let's see here. Market category. It can be an armory, it could be a weaponry, it could be a Fletcher, foodstuffs, or general store. Based on which one this is, switch on. So on construct, and for those of you that may or may not know, construction runs on compile, not on play. So hit compile, and this will run. And it'll also update in the viewport as well as the level designer. So on the construction script of my market master, depending on if it's an armory, weaponry, Fletcher, etc., we're going to take this box here, which, not the box, the static mesh cube. So this set static mesh. So if it's an armory, I'm going to set the mesh to look like an armory. That's something I'm going to sit down in Blender and model up something very basic here in a little while. Actually, no, I'm not, because I just released the fab asset. So I have 6 months free of a couple different softwares that I can model and paint in. I'm excited to look into that. Anywho, so what happens here is event graph. This market does not have very much. It's begin play. It fills the store and it creates the UI instance. So my last video I talked about this. Each market is going to hold its very own UI instance, so that whenever the player interacts with the market is going to return back that UI instance, so that each one is very specific to each market. That way, let's say you go to a foodstuffs and you buy, they have 10 apples and you buy 5. They now have 5 apples. But whenever you leave and come back, it's super simple for that UI to still reflect the same thing. It's not passing data, it's passing a whole UI. So it's keeps things a little bit more organized, in the sense of I don't want to have to each interaction pass all of my inventory values. I just want to pass the UI instance that already holds all the values. Anywho, so that's what this is doing. So the market is actually going to create the UI, save it as a variable, and whenever let's see here. So to fill the store, we're going to get our data table that houses there it is. We're going to get our data table that houses all the information of all of our items. And then we're going to loop through. We're going to save, this is a local variable. This is just so that I don't have this purple line stretched all the way here and all the way over here, and so on and so forth. So random bool is the only reason why this is here is to I don't want each store to be stocked up with the same stuff every single time. I want it to be different, sporadic. So we once we find out what of course for each loop it's going to get each data table row, and for this loop it's going to throw through row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, but only some of those are going to come through. And for the ones that do come through this check here, we're going to go ahead and get the information of that row, and we are going to start doing checks and doing actual work on it. So this check is to determine, well, is the row we picked even for this store? We place out an armory. An armory isn't expected to have apples, but a general store can have just about everything. So row found, we're going to check if it's a general store. If we're trying to stock a general store, then yeah, we're just going to go ahead and add it. If we're not trying to stock a general store, then we look for what specific store it is. And what we do here is we take the market category and we compare it to the market category of the item. And if it's the same, we go ahead and we add it. This here is to determine how many we're going to add. And this is, again, I like the randomness of it. So that's what happens on begin play for each one of these markets. Now, for overlap. So whenever my character overlaps this market's trigger box, what is going to happen is we're just going to get the reference for the player that we need, and we're going to use the interface to fire can interact back to the trade component. I don't need this. So whenever the player overlaps, this here is going to fire can interact back over here. This is going to go ahead and give the player that unique UI instance. It's going to check and set can interact, and if we can interact or we cannot interact, we're going to go ahead and display that press E to interact widget. And if during that time, of course with this branch can't interact, if we press E, then we're going to use a flip-flop. This flip-flop's probably going to be temporary. Anywho, we're going to flip-flop. We're going to disable the movement, display market UI. And if we click it again, we're going to go ahead and give the player its movement back and hide the market UI. Hide market UI and display market UI. That is roped into how I like to set up my UI systems. So we have one widget. One widget is called the master widget. The master widget holds overlays. So we've got an overlay for the market UI. We've got an overlay for the interaction prompt. Since this is just a simple prompt, I just went ahead and added the functionality into here for this. But for the overlay market, it's got a little bit more going for it. So what we do is we have functions up here. There's not very much that goes on in the event graph. The most that we may have is it may construct and go ahead and build a couple of widgets and add them to the overlays, but set them as hidden. That way they're not visible unless we call on it with a function. But since the only thing that we have set up is the market master and its unique UI instance, then widget blueprint master doesn't construct this. The trade, or not the trade component, but the market master does. So, anywho, so display market UI. We're gonna get that unique widget instance from here. Unique market widget instance goes into display market UI. It comes over here. We're gonna go and add that to the overlay for the overlay market. Set it to fill its space, and we are good to go. Same thing goes with hide market UI. We just, since we're not doing visible and hidden, we're adding it and then removing it, and that's what's going on here. So that is pretty much a quick recap of what I've done so far. Now let's figure out what's next. Let's see here. So right now I press E to interact and I've got some stuff here, but I don't have much functionality with it. I'm still moving around. I can't move, but I can look around, so that's not okay. I don't want to be able to look around. I want to actually have my mouse cursor so that I can click buttons and things of the nature. So here's how I'm going to achieve that. And actually that calls for a bit of extra setup on this side, because you want to know what? I'm going to get rid of these movement. I don't need to disable and enable movement. What I'm going to do is, and a better practice than what I've done there, is to mess with game mode. So if you set game mode, you got a couple different options that Unreal Engine gives you, and that's a game in UI or a game only. So I'm going to go ahead, whenever we first fire this to start it, we're going to go ahead and set input mode for game in UI, and then we're going to do the opposite over here. So set game mode, game only. Alrighty. The only thing that this needs to work is player controller, so luckily we can get that pretty generically, not have to do no casting or complicated reference passing. Alright, and alright then, and flush input. Flush input is super duper important. So let's say, for instance, this isn't going to work, but actually I can make it work. Hold on. Because I noticed there is not a whole lot of tutorials on flush input, so I want to go ahead and touch base on this really fast. So what flush input does is if whenever I excuse me. Let's see here. Oh, nope, you know what? I can still move. That's not okay. I don't need to do that. I do need enable and disable movement. Alright. Fine now. I'll set up we need a little bit more room. Okay. There we go. Alright. Now I've got it set up to where it does the input mode. Right. And we are also displaying or disabling and enabling movement. And the last thing that I want to do is set up my mouse cursor. Alright. Now, let's see how this goes. So if I press E to interact, I have my mouse cursor. I don't make the player rotate around. I can click everything. That's nice. That works. Okay, and now I'm going to press E to get out of it. Now that I've got this working as intended, flush input. So let's say, for instance, I'm holding W, and I have press E to interact. Okay, and I was still holding W whenever I pressed E. Now I'm not holding anything. Now I'm going to hit E. Oh, well, it's not going to do it for me now. Go figure. So let's see if I can make it happen. Alrighty, I'm just going to press E, and I'm not going to hold anything. Nope, it's not going to happen. Interesting. Okay. Well, just for safe measures, I'm going to go ahead and click that on anyway. So, what happens with flush input? And it may be because I'm not pausing the game, but let's say that you're holding an input whenever you set input mode game in UI. Let's say, for instance, you're holding W and you go ahead and make this flop. Well, it's going, the memory is still going to hold on to that input value, and it's actually going to make it a very constant input value until you refresh it, until you for instance, hit W again. So in my experience, what normally happens there is, as you're pressing W and you walk past it and you hit E, you do your thing in your inventory, press E again, and then you just start walking forward on your own. This is because it's held onto that input and it's still executing that input until you hit W again, and it says, oh, yeah, that I shouldn't have been doing. So flush input actually flushes out that input from memory. So as soon as you hit game in UI, it just wipes the memory of input and says, okay, whenever we get out of what we're doing here, we're accepting fresh input values. Okay, so now my UI is working. The interaction part of it is working like I want to. Oh, no, it's not. So I can still click and look around. That's not what I want. Log always. Alrighty. Nope. Block on capture maybe? Nope. Let's see if I give it the in widget to focus, will it stop that? Nope, it won't. That is rather strange. Okay. Set up my comment like I like it, but I'm going to do one quick thing. Alright. For now, just to let the video go on and to make more progress in the time I have. Known bug. Okay. Just a moment. Slight intermission. Be right back. Alrighty then, I am back, and let's see what we can work up. So, so I know we need to display data for each item. So that's what this vertical box here is actually for. Let's see here. I don't know if you noticed or not, but I like to lean on the vertical and horizontal boxes a lot. I've always, I keep trying to either use grid panel or uniform grid panel, and it just never really works out for me. I find it a lot easier to use vertical and horizontal boxes to set up my layouts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a horizontal box in here. Another horizontal box. Okay, I'm going to set both of these to fill. Now I have two horizontal boxes and a vertical box. So, make me just a few more. Actually, let's do this. Right, so now I know that I need a thumbnail. I know that I need to display a thumbnail. I need to display the rarity and the value. The number of items allowed for sale, and the items that the player has in his inventory, so that you know if you need to buy any or not. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4. I don't think I need to put number of items for sale there. That's already being shown in the little slot. So we only need 4 data values to be displayed. So I can delete one of these. Okay. Alrighty then. So now this vertical box is in a vertical box. So this vertical box here can have an image and then the 4 data values that it needs. Did I say 4 or 5? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I do only need 4. Shoot. That's fine. So I'm going to delete one of these. The whole reason why I'm being a little more complicated with this than I probably should is so that I can have really nice control over this. Ooh, you know what I may do for this image? Make myself in Blender, a good little display pedestal of sorts, and just place all the items that I'm doing on that pedestal. Set up a camera with lighting, render it out as a PNG, and use that as my thumbnail instead of doing my normal Krita icons, my pixel icons. That would look a lot nicer here. I'll do that. Alright then, and this is going to be my 3 data values. So, in a horizontal box, we're going to have text and text. We're going to have this text fill and this text fill. We're going to have them centered. So we're going to have the justification a little more centered. We're going to call this value. Oh, no. Value. So since this text box right here is going to stay the same, it's always going to say value, but this one here will change based on the item. We're going to make it a variable and call it item value. Okay. Now, to make my life easier, I'm going to delete those 2 horizontal boxes, and I'm just going to duplicate this one a couple of times. There we go. Alright. And that has made all of these variables for me. Now, rarity. Oh, shoot. Rarity. And current inventory. That's awesome. I have just enough space for that. Okay. So, value. Rarity. Alrighty then, that's very basic, but it is the layout. Cool. Alright. Oh, you know what? I know what I forgot to do here, but that's okay. So this is the vertical box. I've got this stacked in it, and I've got this stacked in it. I want one more thing down here in the bottom, and that is a button. I'm going to go ahead and fill it. But instead of having this set to 1, instead of having this set to 1, this is saying how much area that this takes up in the vertical box. Right now this is a 1, this is a 1, and this is a 1. So what it'll do is it'll split up the vertical box's space evenly. But if I take this and put it to 0.25, this button here will take up a little less space than everything else. And that is perfect. I don't really want the button to be that big though. I want it to stretch all the way across. So I'm gonna wrap this with a horizontal box, and I'm gonna center the button inside the horizontal box. That button's way too tiny though. Way too tiny. Maybe not wrap it with a horizontal box then. Maybe a border. There we go. That works. I'm gonna go ahead and let it fill, but I'm gonna give it padding. Left and right, we're gonna say 50. No, more than 50. Let's say 100. That works. 100, and give it like, no, 50 is too much. 25 works. But this border here, I don't really want it. It's just as a placeholder. Oh, darn. You know what? Yep, that's exactly what I wanted. That's fine. That works. Alright then. Okay. I like that. That is very nice. Okay. So then. Okay, what owns my buttons? The overlay. This owns my buttons. This is my button. See, I'll make this the icon, but I'll make this show a more detailed image. I like that idea. Okay. I'm gonna be spending a lot of time in Krita and Blender for this one, but that is okay. This is gonna look nice when it's done. Alright, so if we go over to the button, we're given the functions over here. We're gonna say on clicked. So whenever we click the button, we can actually, unfortunately, with this style here, we've got normal, we've got hovered, and we've got pressed. But whenever you press it, it's a whenever you click on it, it's highlighted nice and pretty. But whenever you release it, it's not highlighted anymore. So what we're gonna do is actually nope, not break, make. Okay. Go, and I just broke open all of those settings right here in my blueprint. Let's see how this is behaving right now. So if we go in, so there is a hovered. Okay, now it's turning them purple. Okay. Now it highlights it a little bit for me, which we will Alrighty then. Item image risk. No, I didn't mean to get. I wanted this in. So, item image. Oh, yep. brush from texture, that's what it is. Alright. Alrighty then. So oh, I don't have parent widget. Alrighty, so this is a good chance to explain to you guys how I do my variable passings. And I think I explained this in the last video, so, but it's such an important factor that I believe that it deserves a second explanation. So I can cast to my market UI, and I can probably successfully cast by get parent, and it'll get my parent, it'll allow me to fire off my event of update info screen like that. But this cast to node, although it's a very quick and easy solution for passing information, it's very expensive. So after so many slots loading in the same cast, that's gonna get expensive, and that's gonna make your game bog really fast. So instead of doing that, we're gonna pass the variable directly. So one wonderful thing about creating unique, actually no, this isn't where I want to be. So let's see here. We create market items. So here's where we create the item slot widget. This is where we're creating these item slots. So instead of casting to, if you make a variable in here, and I'm going to call this parent widget, or alternatively WBP underscore market UI. Alright, that way I know exactly what it is. And then I search for that directly, get the object reference. So now I have it here, and I can call any function that I want. I can call that update info screen event that I just made, but the downside of just making the variable like this, if you try to run it, it's going to tell you get update info screen. Okay, room name, get room name. Alright. So if we run it and we do stuff, it's gonna tell me that it access none trying to read that property. That's because that reference hasn't actually been made. We've said it's there, but this doesn't know that exists, even though it's parent-child relationship. It still needs to have that direct instruction saying, hey, this actually really exists. So you go into WBP Market UI. There are two options here that you need to check: instance editable and exposed on spawn. So what this is going to do is this is going to give Market UI the ability, you gotta refresh the node, the ability to give it that reference. And this is easy as stuff. Now that none error that I was getting, I no longer get it. Everything works as intended. Alright, from here I'm going to go ahead and put it up. Unfortunately, I'm running low on time myself. I do work, unfortunately, but there will be a new video next up, coming up, and the next video we're going to go ahead and polish the system some, and we're going to get all of this stuff working. Now that we've got the layout and we've got the reference and how it works, it's going to be as simple, if I can figure out where I should be, it's going to be as simple as just on click button. We're going to update the info screen with the market UI reference and the row name. We're going to use the row name right here to break it apart and use all these good bits of information to just set stuff. Once we finish up with that, it's more or less going to be making this look a little bit more visually appealing instead of just white plain text. With that being said, I think I'm going to call this the end of this video. I just want to go ahead and say thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much for developing with me. And from one fellow dev to another, happy developing. Have a good night.